Dear students, welcome to my classroom of environmental sociology. Today I am going to teach you risk. What does it mean? When we talk on risk, that means we are talking about the dangers, like how we can protect our environment and how we can also get certain ideas related to the sociology behind environment. I'm talking about environmental sociology and its connection with risk, and how can we also try to make a discourse on risk, environmental sociology, and policy analysis. I would like to begin with my understanding of environmental sociology. In my previous modules, I have given my lectures on the literary expressions of environment. Also, I talked on how we can experience environment through the Indian philosophy. Also, I talked on policy analysis and many more. I think it's very important for us to recapitulate or to revisit the definition of environmental sociology. Environment is something which is hardcore topic of science. We talk on environmental science, but nature is something which is very near and dear to us. We all are the children of the mother nature or the mother earth. We have various literary expressions of nature and environment. That gives us a sense of subjective interpretation of nature and environment. That can be also documented. We can make films, and also we can have many more experiments with environment. But our basic motto is to protect or save environment, and for that we need to be very much active with regard to our efforts. We can write, we can show our protests, and also by these initiatives we can make others aware or sensitize. So what I was talking about like how we can protect environment, how we can make people aware of the same, how we can sensitize people. So here it's not only we are emphasizing on the scientific explanations of environment, we are also trying to find out the subjective analysis of our thoughts with regard to the protection of nature or environment, which I have already discussed in the beginning of my lecture. As in one of my lectures, I talked on policy analysis, that what should be our prime concern or objective behind the making of the policies with regard to the protection of environment. Here, the government has to be proactive, and also we need the opinion of the people or public so that we can have an environment-friendly policy or a set of environment-friendly policies to keep our mother earth healthy and cheerful. If I talk on risk, what is risk? I'm talking about the various avenues through which we can identify environmental pollution. It can be air pollution, it can be how we are using nuclear power, it can be like that what we are thinking about the concept of biodiversity, how we are trying to recycling the waste so that we can have plastic-free environment. So these are the prime concerns which can be incorporated with the idea of risk. I'm repeating what I have said right now. We should give emphasis on biodiversity. Number one, how can we recycle the wastage or the waste materials to get an environment which is plastic free. We can also give emphasis on eco-friendliness, and by doing all these, we can minimize the risk of environmental pollution. And this pollution is something related to air, related to water, related to soil or earth. And also I have mentioned that when we talk on environmental pollution, that is something also related to the usage of nuclear power or nuclear weapon. Here I think, like as I have given you a brief idea about risk or risks, then it is important for us to understand that why we are so much bothered to protect environment. If we see the data which are preserved in UNESCO or in WHO and also in IMF and World Bank and also in other agencies, even if we can see the data which we have in our National Family Health Survey, we will be able to understand that many of the diseases which are ruining us or making us the victims, like cancer, lung diseases, skin problems, and many more, are the products of the environmental degradation or pollution what we have. We have airborne diseases, and for that, environmental pollution plays an important role. How we are polluting the environment. We are using those products which are making the environment more vulnerable. If I give you the example of using LPG gas or using the natural fuels like wood, which would be preferable in this case to protect environment? Definitely we can go for the usage of LPG gas instead of using the woods or the fuel where we are using coal. But there is also a problem with this regard. Many of the families in India, they are not in a position to afford LPG gas. If I go to the remote interior villages of our country, I will be able to find many people who are living under the poverty line or the below the poverty line. So how can we facilitate LPG gas to them, because they are not in a position to afford? In that case, to maintain their livelihood, what they are doing, they are using the natural fuel, the woods, the coal, etc. By doing this, they are making the environment more, what I can say, affected. And they are also becoming the victims of the lung diseases, various lung diseases, including lung cancer. Also, I can give one example of air pollution when I talk on smoking. Many of the women in the household, they are getting affected by the lung disease or various forms of lung diseases because they are the passive smokers. These references I have received from the data of National Family Health Survey. So these are the risks that which we are confronting or which we are facing. So these risks are in a very, what I can say, ground level risks I am talking. But there are the risks which are having further importance or significance. If I talk on water pollution as a whole, like that how we use the polluted water of river Ganges for drinking purpose and for cooking purpose, if I'm talking about those people who are poor and who used to live on the banks of the river Ganges. Apart from river Ganges, we have many water bodies, rivers in our country which are not properly maintained. We are not giving that much emphasis with regard to the purification of the water of these water bodies, River Ganges is just an example. If you go to the ghats of Banaras, you will be able to see like that there people are performing the last rites as per the Hindu customs. On the other hand, some people are also using the water from the same river for their domestic or household purposes. So these are the risks which we need to highlight. So these are the risks which are, at the primary level, and we need to situate or identify these risks. Then we can go for the risks which are nationwide. So this water pollution, or like how we are having water pollution, is a part of the risks which I have just discussed. It can be termed as a national risk as well as a risk at the micro and macro level. So I'm talking about something which is having both micro and macro approaches along with its identity, which is national. As I talked on air pollution, water pollution, then it's also important for us to understand how we can prevent soil erosion or deforestation. Definitely, we need to be more eco-friendly. We need to support the cause of environment so that we would be able to have a life without deforestation. Because deforestation sometimes causes natural calamities. What we had experienced in Kedar 5 or 6 years back, like the flood, or there are many examples which we can identify with this regard. Even I can also tell you about the Chipko movement, or how the women in Himachal, they hugged the tree so that the trees would not be cut down, and by this way they wanted to save the nature. Hugging the tree and also trying to save the nature is helping us to understand one more concept, which is also related to environmental sociology as well as with risk, and that is the concept of ecofeminism. When we talk on ecofeminism, we need to understand this is a concept which emerged in the Western world in 1970s. We adopted ecofeminism. We tried to do a lot of experiments with ecofeminism, and the social activist Vandana Shiva, she has given a new connotation to this idea of ecofeminism, as she tried to have some experimentations with regard to agriculture, so that how can we promote sustainable development in agriculture. By this way, we can give relief to the farmers who are always very much in the pressure of, borrowing money from others. And on the other hand, by minimizing the usage of chemical fertilizers and pesticides, we can protect soil erosion or the Mother Earth. So here also we are finding a risk that cutting the woods, promoting the urbanization, and also welcoming the natural calamities. So this is something which also we need to address. So if I would like to recap that what I have said till now, because I feel that students, until and unless they are not getting that much interest in the subject, then they won't be able to have their study or research in this regard. I want the students not only to refer the academic script and PPT and the other materials which we are providing. I want students to have some researches as well. You can Google it, you can go to the library of your college or of your institution, and if you have any question, you can mail to the coordinator so that I would be able to help you. At the this point, I want to have something like an interaction with my students as I'm talking about ecofeminism. Ecofeminism is a concept where we are trying to find out similarities between the Mother Earth and the women, because both of them are showing tremendous patience and tolerance through the ages, but sometimes they also get back, so that we could be able to understand that we cannot destroy nature, we cannot harm women, because until and unless we are having that kind of realization to respect both the Mother Earth and the women of our country, if I'm giving the example of India, we won't be able to understand the essence of this concept ecofeminism, which talks for protecting the womanhood, where nature is playing the role of a metaphor. And if you are disrespectful to the nature as well as to the womanhood, then you will definitely face the consequences in the form of protest, and if we talk about nature, in the form of calamities. So when we talk on ecofeminism, then there are many people who are, helping us to contribute with this regard and also to know the environment better. So I can give you some examples, but amongst these people like that who are very much important to understand ecofeminism, there is one person who made ecofeminism popular in the field of academia in India. What is her name? Your answer should be like that what I want from you, that would be like I am giving you some names and it's like a quiz. So if I ask you, like, tell me one of the personality who is very much related to ecofeminism, what would be your answer? I'm giving you 4 options. Sundarlal Bahuguna, number 1. Number 2, Medha Patkar. Number 3, Greta Thunberg. Number 4, Vandana Shiva. To be very specific, the right answer for this is option 4, Vandana Shiva. Vandana Shiva has contributed to a great extent to make this concept of ecofeminism more acceptable and more interesting if we would like to situate this as an academic discourse. As we are talking about the various facets related to environmental pollution and how we can measure the risk or the risks, it is also important for us to understand that all these risks are mostly the products of our fallacy, or how we are trying to fulfill our desires for materialistic gains, and because of that how we are ruining environment, we are becoming the slaves of capitalism, or we are also trying to, what I can say, forget that our duties towards environment. So this is something where we can also have some literary projections, like if I give you the example of Milton's Paradise Lost, so where we find like that when Eve, she ate a piece of the apple, the forbidden apple, that definitely one step towards not only fulfilling the human desires and to invite plight, it is also something which indicates towards environmental decay or degradation. So what I'm trying to say, like that as I have given the example of Milton's Paradise Lost, that how we destroy or how we harm environment just to fulfill our desires or our materialistic gains or our self-interest. Here I would also like to say that it is important to situate the risks, as I have given some references, and in my academic script you will be able to find the references worldwide, emphasizing the data from one of the first world countries, that is United States. Why I have chosen United States of America as one of my case studies, because the data which I am getting, that data is helping me to understand the curses of urbanization or of the modern civilization. Here I would also like to mention that what Gandhi ji once stated through his writings. When I talk on his book Hind Swaraj, there Gandhi ji mentioned that how the Western civilization, which is basically based on machines, ruining our potentials, making us crippled and making the environment polluted and making us the slaves of the world, which only thinks about its self-interests. So he was very much against of Western civilization. Rather, he wanted to promote the indigenous tradition, culture, industry, if we give the example of charkha and khadi. So here I must say that how he brilliantly pointed out the risks and how he tried to minimize the risk with his own ideas, which are also helping us to understand his philosophy of life based on non-violence or ahimsa. His Satyagraha or quest for truth is not a political ideology. It is something which is also helping us to understand how we can have a sustainable livelihood where we can think for the protection of ourselves and also the mother nature. So the quest for truth has to be imbibed in the minds of the people if we want to have a life which is spiritual, which is religious, which is pure, which is serene, which is sinless. And for having that life, we also need to respect environment. Even Rabindranath Tagore, through his many writings, if I give the example of his drama Rakto Karobi, that he tried to make us understand the concept of risk related to environmental sociology. Though he was not that much aware of these concepts which we have developed later, but he showed his concerns for environment, and from that perspective we must say that both Gandhiji and Rabindranath, they belonged to the first generation of environmentalists in our country. Rakto Karobi is a drama where he is trying to give emphasis on how we are ruining the nature. People are constructing dam. As a result of that dam, many people lost their lives along with the ruin of environment. So this is something which I thought like I should convey in this lecture, along with the reflection of how we can protect the environment and what are the probable risks in a fashion which is much more subjective. Here also I can give you the example of how William Blake, through his writings, he talked on environment and helping us to understand that our love for environment has to be immortal so that we can also have a peaceful nest in the environment, which is important for our holistic growth. So these are the subjective ways of identifying risks. And as I have also given you some hardcore facts, how can we avoid risks with regard to environment? Here I must say that we need to have a minimalistic lifestyle. Otherwise, we won't be able to protect environment, and we will have more victims of environmental pollution. I can give you the example of Bhopal gas tragedy, which took place in the year 1984. Like how people, they lost their lives just because of the humans, the owners of the factory were not that much concerned about the effects which could be detrimental and could be fatal, and by this way, because of their ill decisions, many people lost lives. So this is something which I need to mention, that we, the humans, we are responsible for all these environmental risks that what I am talking about. And we are the people, if we are more concerned, more human, and if we are thinking about others, then we might be in a position to minimize or to decrease these levels of risks in the various means. So this is what I feel like, that it's not possible for give you a definite definition of risk. I can share certain examples, and you have to be cautious, or you have to be having that kind of mindset to understand my deliberation. In my academic script and PPT, you will get a lot of examples, but in this class of environmental sociology, it's not only we are dealing with the information, but we need to decode or decipher those information so that we can take some lessons from those information, and we can rectify ourselves, and we can act in a more mature manner. Maturity is very much important, and I'm talking about the maturity. It's not something which is which belongs in our minds only, that a nation has to be mature, a nation or a country has to be more, what I can say, human with regard to the usage of the natural resources. Here we can blame globalization, we can blame the modern amenities, we can blame the mechanization of our daily lives, that how we are dependent on various ways of machines and technologies. We cannot live our life without cell phones. We have become very much, what I can say, slaves of comfort and luxury. But have we ever thought that by this way we are increasing the risks related to the environmental pollution, the maximum usage of technologies without any proper reason? Technology should not be something which is helping you to have a life of luxury. Rather, you use technology for the purpose of medical science, and also how we can make the civilization a place for better living. And here I would like to say, in his book, Tools of the Empire, Daniel Hedrick, he talked on like how the colonizers, I'm talking about the British colonizers, they crippled us, they made us their slaves with the help of technology. Here also I can talk on David Arnold, like how he said that by using Western medicine, the British colonizers, they made us their slaves because they colonized our body. And it is something where we think about decolonizing our minds. If we can decolonize our minds, then we also respect our tradition, our values, our ethos, which are basically our roots. So it's better to back to the roots, to think about how to have an environment where we can use less number of gadgets, and by this way we can protect or save the environment. If we can minimize or lessen the risks at this primary level, then definitely it will also help the administrators to apply the same techniques with regard to the policy making. Better to start from the home or the place where you stay, because charity begins at home. And if you think to protect environment, if you think to protect Mother Earth, if you think that we should not encourage more environmental risks with regard to air, water, soil, and other detriments which are related to pollution of our nature, then we need to think from the beginning, and here the mass or the public can play an important role. So from next time onwards, before wasting the natural resources, you need to understand that you are increasing the risks related to environment. Before wasting the energy, like I'm talking about, sometimes we keep the lights on for a long, or also we keep open the tap of water in our washroom without considering the fact that we are utilizing the resources in such a way that is very much negative and might be affecting the entire equilibrium which we have in this environment. So we can start with these small steps so that later on each of us would be more productive and would be more constructive with regard of protecting the environment along with the government initiatives. Thank you.